I'm Christopher Warnock from Renaissance Astrology. And I'd like to talk today about consecrating Renaissance Astrology talismans. So if you've ordered a talisman from me, this will give you a kind of a rundown about how to consecrate it. So let's first talk a little bit about astrological talismans. Essentially, astrological talismans are talismans that are made by using astrological spirits. That can be the spirits of the planets, the fixed stars, the mansions of the moon. There's many different types. I look upon these spirits as essentially angelic. And so what we're doing when we consecrate a talisman is to call the spirit down into the talisman or to get in contact with the spirit that's already there. So when we make our talismans, the key is that they're made at a very specific time. And I've spent about 15 years learning how to do the timing. It's very complex, and there's really nobody else in the world who's selling talismans that are very carefully timed. So what I'll do is I'll look out for, say, a year in advance. I'll find a good time for a talisman, and then I'll tell my jeweler, Wade, who's in Boulder, Colorado, and he will typically have a half an hour to 40-minute window. And the actual metal for the talismans, whether it's gold, silver, or different types of bronze, has to be poured into the molds during that window. And then when Wade pours those talismans, he then consecrates the talismans, doing an initial consecration. And what he's doing is he's calling upon the spirit of that talisman, whether it's a planet, I said, or a fixed star, to come in and inhabit that talisman with its power and with its spirit. And so when you receive a talisman that's been shipped to you, it's already been consecrated. So it's okay to wear that talisman before you do the personal consecration, and the power is already in it. And some people ask me, well, do I need to do the personal consecration? It's not 100% necessary, but you are going to miss out on some of the power and some of the strength of the talisman. The other advantage of the personal consecration is if you do it periodically, say every 3, 6, or once 12 months, then you're going to be able to keep the connection going with that spirit. So in a sense, you can keep that talisman going forever if you keep consecrating it on a regular basis. So that's a good idea to do that. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is many people are very concerned that they're going to make a mistake. And if they make a mistake, essentially it's going to blow up like a grenade in their face. And that's not a problem with astrological talismans. These spirits are basically angelic. They essentially have your best interests at heart. And the key word that you want to keep in mind with these talismans is respect. Think of the talisman, treat it like a gift watch or a piece of jewelry that's given to you by your rich uncle. You know, how would you treat it? You wouldn't just throw it in the dirt. You wouldn't let your dog chew on it. You would be careful with it. On the other hand, again, you don't have to worry about, again, that something's going to go wrong with it. And that extends to the ritual. As you'll see, this is not a goetic ritual. We're not dealing with demons here. We don't need to protect ourselves against these spirits. We're not making protective circles. We are essentially using a devotional form of consecration. This is similar to the way that planets are treated in Vedic astrology and in India, where the planets are looked upon as gods. And that's the way my approach is increasingly that way. I'm very devotional. I have a very strong relationship with the planets, the stars, the other astrological spirits. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about how to set up for the ritual and then give you a little bit of an example. And what I've chosen to do today for my example is Saturn. Now Saturn, for example, he rules the color black, so as you can see I'm wearing black clothing. I mean, again, that's not necessary, but if you want to go further with that, you can play Saturnine music, which might be a little quiet or melancholy or depressing. Depends on the planet. I mean, the sun is going to be very, like a kingly music, sort of like trumpets or something would be appropriate. Venus, music love songs or something like that would be appropriate for Venus. So that's possible. The more you can do that's of the type and energy of the planet, things that are ruled by that planet, the better. Again, you don't have to go and do that. Now, in terms of the actual ritual, what you want to do is set yourself up with an altar space. Now, as you can see, I have a fairly elaborate altar space here. This is my planetary altar. I have a lot of mirrors and different, talismans are on the altar, lots of things set up. That's not necessary. What you want to do, you can use a bookshelf. That's what this is. That's actually a good way to do it. And what you want to do is, when you receive your Renaissance Astrology talisman, it will include a postcard size image here that's done. These are traditional images of the planets, and they're connected to them, or the stars, whatever we're working with. And what you can do is take that image and you can stick it up, on the wall. And, you know, you could tape it up, or you could use, you know, I use this little sort of poster stuff at the corners. You can stick it up, or you can just lean it up against the wall like I'm doing here. And so that gives you a nice altar space. You've got the card, and then you can have your candle here in front of it, and your incense. And so, you know, again, the planets have certain numbers associated with them. If you want to use that number of candles, that's fine. One candle is fine, though. And again, I typically use white. Each of the planets, again, has different colors associated with it. Or you can do colors based on your goal. If you wanted money, you could do green or gold. Love, you could do pink. Those are also appropriate. Again, though, I like to use white. I buy candles by the case. I use votive candles. You can see this is a votive candle holder and a candle that I got together, and I burn a lot of candles. In terms of incense, the traditional incense, there's various types. This, for example, is what's called gum mastic, and you can see it comes in little sort of beads. Frankincense looks a lot like this. This is also kind of a big chunkier type of frankincense. These are the traditional incenses. They come from the resin of various trees, and in order to burn those, you're going to need to have an incense burner, and then you're going to need to have charcoal. And then in addition to that, you're going to need some charcoal tongs. Do not pick up the charcoal with your fingers. You're going to want to pick it up like this. And then what you do is you'll light the corners of the incense. You hold it over the flame, over the edges of it, and then that'll get the incense going. And then put those lit corners facing up. Okay? And so once that piece of charcoal gets going, then you can put the little beads of incense on top of it. And so you can use, for example, you know, plants or resins or whatever they're associated with the planet. For Saturn, for example, he likes things that smell. I don't like to use smelly incense, but he also rules like pine trees, so I could use pine incense for him. There's lots of possibilities. The other option is to use stick incense. And for stick incense, I think most people are familiar with that. I tend to use, when I do my rituals, you know, instead of a whole stick, I'm using a very small amount. I'm kind of susceptible to smoke, and I don't like to have a lot of incense. So that you can see, I'll use a small, you can use a different type of incense burner. These little ceramic incense burners will often come with the Japanese stick incense. So the first thing that we want to do before starting the ritual, is make sure we have our talisman. And so here's a Saturn talisman. And what we'll do is you can go ahead and light the candle. And then at that point, if you want to pick up your charcoal and the tongs and then light it, you know, you can do that. Again, you need to hold it in the edges. You'll see the embers will start to go, and the edge will light. It can go out if you don't get it lit properly. One of the things that's good to do to start the ritual is purification. You can get some water, and then I like to sprinkle the water to the four corners and call upon the four archangels, Raphael, Uriel, Michael, and Gabriel. So I'll sprinkle the water, I'll say, in the name of the archangels Raphael, Uriel, Michael, and Gabriel, east, north, south, east, and west, purify the space, and we'll begin this ritual. And so then, if you're working with incense, again, you're going to light the incense. I'm going to use tongs here because this piece is so short. I'm going to light the incense in the candle. And make sure it's going. And then I'm going to stick it in the holder here. Be very, very careful with incense and with candles. Don't leave them unattended. Don't burn yourself. You know, make sure the candle's not going to fall over on you. You want to be as safe as possible. It's not very well omened to burn your house down when you're doing the talismans. Okay, so then the next thing is to do the consecration. Now, Picatrix translations and consecrations are found in my Secrets of Planetary Ritual and also in the full Picatrix. Secrets of Planetary Ritual is set up to use for consecrations. It has a large font. It doesn't have footnotes, so you don't have to keep dropping down. This is the best resource to use for a book to actually be used for ritual. Though the full Picatrix rituals are found in the complete Picatrix, which you can find on our website at Renaissance Astrology or online at Amazon.com. Now on the back of Secrets of Planetary Ritual are my shorter daily planetary rituals, planetary invocations that I use. And so there's each of the planets you can use. And then if you buy a Renaissance Astrology talisman, it'll include either a booklet or a 8.5 by 11 printout that will have the complete instructions that as we're going through. And it includes, typically, we use the Orphic hymns are included in that, and those are very good too. Those are ancient hymns. So the key to the consecration is that you want to, as the incense is burning and the candle is burning and you've purified the space, you want to then read this consecration invocation and move the talisman back and forth through the smoke of the incense. And that way you're activating it, you're calling the spirit into it, and then you can go ahead and read your ritual. And so then afterwards I recommend that you then contemplate, just look, I say meditate on the image. What that means is to take a look at this color image here and to think about it. Think of it as a window or a door into the sphere of that planet or the star. That you're contacting them, you're observing them, and you're getting in contact with them. And that's an excellent way to kind of make that spiritual contact, because we all have a connection to the spirit of the world and then onto the planets. And so then when you're done with that, you can, sometimes, the instructions say let the candles burn down. If you're not around, you can put them out. Traditionally, you would snuff it as opposed to blowing it out. Now, with votive candles, I need to blow the candle out. So again, the details are not as important as the attitude of respect. And the key elements are making sure that you have candles and incense, that you purify the space beforehand, that you've done the invocation while moving the talisman back and forth through the incense. That's the key. Now, if you have your own ritual, if you're pagan or Wiccan, or you have another ritual that will involve the planet that uses Mercury or Saturn or whatever, as long as it's appropriate for the planet. If it's Saturn, you don't want to be doing a different god or different spirit. You want to make sure you're doing a Saturn ritual for Saturn. Otherwise, it's pretty flexible in terms of doing it. Now, you can repeat the ritual again. The timing also is fairly significant. It's not as important to get a perfect election for a consecration as you would for the timing. When you make a talisman, you're freezing that moment. When you're, again, doing these later consecrations, you're getting in contact with the spirit, so it's not as important. For the planets, what you want to do is you can do it at sunrise. That's when the sun first comes over the horizon on the day that the planet rules. And so that's easy for Saturn, that's Saturday. And so the other thing you do is planetary hours. If you want to repeat this, you can do it again at the same planetary hour. So if you're going to do Saturn, I think the number of Saturn is 3 or 9. You could do it 3 days in a row. Do it at sunrise on Saturday. That's Saturn day, Saturn hour. And then the next day you could do it at Saturn hour on a Sunday, and so on. But if you have any questions about that, you can email me and I can play that out. But it's perfectly fine to do the ritual once. And if you've got a fixed star talisman or any other type of talisman other than a planet, I provide one free election as part of the when you buy a talisman. If you do subsequent elections or you lose that original election or can't do it, then you're going to need to order it from me, because those do take time and energy for me to do. So I hope this is helpful. Essentially, like I said, the key word is respect. We want to make sure that we are being respectful to the planet, and if we are, or the star, and if we are, then they're going to be, give us the benefit of their power and their spirit. So hope that's useful, and I hope that you enjoy your talisman and that you get all the benefits that you hope for.